Welcome to the Baseball Talk Radio Show. It's your weekly show devoted to talking all about our favorite sport, and I'm sure it's probably yours, baseball. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Baseball Talk Radio Show for the end of August 2017. How you doing, Mr. Gary Mack?
I am doing good, Mr. Rich Baxter. How are you?
Not bad for the end of the summer. I'm starting to think October. I'm starting to think playoffs a little bit. I know I'm jumping the gun, but yeah, the unofficial end of summer coming around the corner just doesn't feel right, does it?
Oh, where did the days of summer go, Rich? They went too quick for me. I'm a hot guy. I like it. Well, I'm not hot. I mean, I like the heat, and I am not looking forward to what's coming up. The older I get, the more I despise the ice and the snow and the wintertime and the cold. So I am not happy, but like you said, it's getting near the end of the season, and it's getting near playoff time. And Rich, you happened to have spent yesterday at the ballpark, and lo and behold, you saw your Phillies play the world champion Cubs, who look like they're in charge now. It's still a tight race a little bit for them in the Central, but I think they're in first, so I can't see them going anywhere. But how did the Cubbies look yesterday?
Well, the Cubbies, it was great to see them in person. And really, I learned more and more about watching the game yesterday and how important it is to go to a game and watch in person, because you pick up little things that you don't see on television. A lot of the times, the action on television is not what you're supposed to be watching when you're scouting a team, but just little things like the way players carry themselves on the field, especially the world champs themselves, and how selfless they seem to be towards themselves. They were very motivated into a single focus of team baseball. That's what I've picked up the most out of that team. There was no me, rah, 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 look at me, put me on the camera. You got your job done and you did it well, even though the Phillies ended up beating the Cubs in that series 2 out of 3 games. And look at the Phillies, Gary. They pulled off the rare 7-4-3 triple play yesterday. So you never know what you're going to see at a ball game.
That's so true. And really a little controversy there about whether or not he caught the ball, Rhys Hoskins, and the replay showed that he did. And it was challenged, and the challenge was denied. And so triple play by the Phillies. You had it all going there. Hoskins hit another home run. He's starting. He's the second half Aaron Judge in baseball, apparently. But and you caught the tail end, the last game for the Phillies of Players Weekend with the funky uniforms. Any kind of report? How did they look in person?
Well, the funky uniforms I wasn't a big fan of. I would have been much more happy to see the regular uniforms, although it was a nice promotion for the players. I saw Brian on the field, and I had to double take. I saw 2 letters on the back of his jersey. It said KB on there, and I said, "Who the heck is that?" But the jerseys left a little to be desired for me. I thought they sort of resembled more softball jerseys than they did baseball jerseys. But a lot of fun was had with the players on that, with the nicknames, and but I'm glad it's getting back to regular baseball. Maybe a whole weekend is a little long to do that. Maybe just do it on a Saturday or something. But it was fun. But my preference is the regular uniforms.
Yeah, I kind of agree. One day would have been quite enough, and or what they should do is sprinkle it throughout the year. Maybe have it 3 days, but have it at different times. a day in June, a weekend in June, a weekend in July, a weekend in August or September, like that. Spread it out a little bit. And I think it would be more appreciated to have it 3 days in a row. You get tired of it after a while. And I think the whole idea of it just gets tiresome after a while. Of course, they did it in connection with Little League Baseball, and they wear more colorful uniforms because they've got so many teams at the World Series. So it's a salute to them. And one of the things they didn't talk much about, Rich, is the patch that everybody had on their arm, and they were able to write in. It started with a Little League player, and it showed like the evolution to a Major League player. And they had a spot that the players could actually write on to who they felt was most responsible or who helped them get to their point in life the most. And there was you saw mom and dad and mom and that sort of thing, and nobody really talked about that, and I think that was a shame.
Yeah, the little nuances of how you grow up to be quote unquote a major league player, things like that. I'm sure there's a lot of different tales out there. In fact, last evening I had a late night drive, so I was more than happy to listen to MLB Network Radio late in the late morning hours, and they had some interviews with certain players running overnight, and it was just talk about that, like where you grew up at, Florida or California or wherever these guys come from, and what school did you go to, and it was very down to earth talk about how they fell into baseball, and a couple of the stories were amazing. That one player just started playing baseball because his friend started, and lo and behold, he became a major league player, and quite a famous one. I don't recall his name, but that was an interesting interview where he just sort of fell into baseball with his buddies, and he was the one that made it.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting stories out there, but it was an interesting weekend, Rich, and well, except for the Sox. The Sox really, they got to tone those babies down. They were a little out of control, but everything else I could live with. Like I said, though, don't maybe not a whole weekend. Do it either once, like you said, or do it at 3 different times during the season.
Yeah, I think the novelty of it does wear off after a while, especially well in the Philadelphia area. That the hat was a light blue Liberty Bell on top of a somewhat orangish red hat that wasn't very appealing. It just like took a little of the luster away from that nice uniform that you're used to seeing. And a one-off for me would have been great, but glad they all had fun.
And there was a lot of controversy about the Yankees uniform because the pinstripes are so historical or whatever, however you want to put it. But
Nouns and
they never really. I forget the year, but they never wore the pinstripes until the 20s or something. And Babe Ruth never wore NY on his chest when he played. The only time he did was at his retirement ceremony, and of course in early photos they didn't even use numbers until 24, I think it was. And so, but the commissioner weighed in on this and said that the baseball will survive without the Yankees wearing pinstripes for a weekend. So, Manfred was checking in on this, and he says the Yankees are always going to have pinstripe uniforms, and 2 days modern civilization is probably going to survive without those 2 days or 3 days, whatever it's going to be. So, and we did survive without the Yankees and pinstripes for 3 days.
that's well. Speaking of the game, Judge, of course, a home run hitter, but the Phillies have seemed to found one as well. I'll mention this before I forget to. Reese Hoskins is his name. I'm sure baseball fans have heard his name already, possibly, but he hit his 11th homer in 18 games which is an MLB record going back to at least 1913. And I believe he was the fastest to hit 10 home runs ever in the major league. So we have another home run hitter contender here in Reese Hoskins. And he has made the transition from AAA. And lo and behold, he's setting the world on fire all of a sudden.
Now, is that the guy that when the Mets were in town that he was looking for his first hit and his family was there and he couldn't get that hit at all and
Yes, the
and
same.
he caught fire after the Mets left town, huh?
Yeah, he went, I believe, 0 for 11 in his first Philly at bats. A lot of the pundits were starting to wonder if maybe this transition over to the MLB was going to be tough for him after the first 12 at bats. But ever since then, he's been on a tear that, as you said, he got his first major league hit against the Mets. He got his first RBI, I believe, against the Mets, and then never looked back so far. So a lot of bright spots in Philadelphia. I was near an interview with the director of player development for Reese Hoskins and all the Phillies minors players, and I was listening to what he said, and of course they're very pleased with this.
Oh, I'm sure they are. It does make them look good that they're developing the players in the right way, and I guess we would be remiss if we didn't talk about a bad thing that happened over this weekend, and that's the Hurricane Harvey hitting the Gulf Coast of Texas and really causing a lot of havoc down there, and even throwing baseball into a tailspin.
Yeah, it's sort of cropped up there within about a 48-hour period. This hurricane, it went from nothing to all of a sudden Texas is going to have a Category 4 hurricane, and my God, it was terrible. Flooding forced the Astros, of course, and the Rangers to move to Florida. And, that's secondary when a hurricane's blowing in on you like that. People like that are just trying to survive. And, thank God we've been watching the news over the last couple of days and seeing the great rescues and things that are impacted with the flooding and all this other stuff associated with hurricanes, which we know quite well, Gary, living on the East Coast. Um, you got to pray for them and hope everything's going to be better for them even after, because we know it's a long road to recovery for them. Baseball will be there for them. And that's a good distraction, baseball. But when you're in a catastrophe, I don't know how you feel, but I forgot about baseball for a week or two.
Well, yeah, having been involved with Hurricane Sandy, and I still have bins of stuff packed that we had to try to save that was left, and the amount of stuff that we lost in Hurricane Sandy. With this award-winning lineup. So they experienced Nissan's award-winning lineup. It's really not a fun thing to be involved in. And good luck to those people in Houston and Corpus Christi and Galveston. They seem to get hit the most. And yeah, it's just not fun. And as you said, they're moving the Astros and the Rangers, a big series, by the way, to Tampa Bay to play at the home of the Rays.
A place where, it's been criticized. I think I listened to a few shows over the last weekend, and they're calling Tropicana Field one of the least liked places in baseball, but at least it's going to be cover and shelter for, some teams that are moving the series down there and everything. So it does have a purpose, especially in Florida there. It's, a hot spot for hurricanes as well. So we got to wish all of our listeners in the Texas area well. Hope everything gets back to normal for you. And we send you our prayers down there.
We certainly do. And Rich, something that's normal, I guess, or about above normal this year is the home runs getting hit. And how about Giancarlo Stanton? He hit number 50. And no talk of PEDs with this guy. I mean, big guy, big home run hitter, and I think this is a career high for him. And he's got a chance to hit 60 or more, I think.
Yeah, he's a house on fire, so to speak. Um, 50 home runs. I haven't heard that number in a long time.
Sure.
Can he go for 70?
Probably could. I mean, he just got named the player of the week in the NL, and rightfully so with the numbers he's been putting up, and his average is pretty decent too. So he's really doing it all. But boy, 50 home runs is that's a lot.
A lot of home runs, and regardless, at least he's made himself known with the Marlins. Of course, with that huge contract that's going to be coming due after this year, actually. What a better time to do that? You're going to show, hey, I'm worth this kind of money. Here you go. Here's 50 home runs, maybe 60 by the time it's all done. So it's going to be interesting to see Stanton and how he ends up this season.
And there was talk of perhaps they may trade him because he did clear waivers, and of course he probably cleared waivers because of that crazy contract he's got. But nobody, I don't think anybody approached the Marlins. I could be wrong about making a trade for him, but boy, it'd have to be you'd have to give up your farm system practically to bring him back. I mean, the only trade that would be equivalent one-on-one would probably be like Stanton for Mike Trout, something along that line. It's got to be a big blockbuster trade.
Yeah, and you have an old ownership involved in this now with Loria. The hands are changing on the Marlins franchise. But, look at the Marlins franchise buyer. They're getting one of the best home run hitters in baseball. They've got him signed regardless of the money at this point. The money looks worth it at this time, and as you said, they put him through waivers to maybe dangle him out there. Does anybody want to take on this contract, which I don't have the exact number in front of me, but I believe it's north of $325 million.
Yeah.
But that they used to build stadiums for around that, didn't they?
Yeah. And years ago, a lot less than that they used to build
stadium for you, $325 million. Well,
wow. The Marlins don't even draw, and they sold for $1.2 billion.
Yeah, business must be good down there somewhere. They're selling a lot of iced tea down there. Let's take a little break in the podcast here. We'll come back, talk a little bit more. I know Gary and I have been off a couple of weeks there. We got a late summer break. So we're raring to talk more baseball talk with you here on the podcast. Check us out, baseballtalkradio.com, and all over the internet where you can find us and listen to our show. We'll be back in a minute. We'd love to hear your comments. Please send your emails to talk@mlbthisweek.com. You can reach Gary at baseballtalkradio.com or me, Rich, at baseballtalkradio.com. We'd love to hear your comments, so send them in. Subscribe to the Baseball Talk Radio show on Stitcher Radio, iTunes, or Podomatic.com. This way, you'll never miss an episode. Gary, I think I'm going to go over to baseballtalkradio.com and listen to all the baseball talk shows there. Do you think I can cram it all in on a weekend?
No, I don't think so. It's going to take you quite some time, but there's a little bit of everything there. Cover most of the teams, and Japanese baseball, fantasy baseball, all there at baseballtalkradio.com, the home of great baseball talk shows. And go check it out. It's a great place. And if you'd like to help us out a little bit, you can go to patreon.com, become a sponsor of the show. Help us out. $2 a month, $1 a month, anything you can give it all would be gratefully appreciated and help us do more of this kind of thing, the video, and expand our capabilities, and maybe some on the road surprises in the summertime. So that's patreon.com/baseball talk. Give whatever you can. We greatly appreciate it. And this is the time of the year, the spirit of giving is strong with everyone. So please go and help us out.
You're listening to baseballpodcasts.net.
Wouldn't it be great if you could get a PhD in life through baseball? Welcome to Baseball PhD, a tour company for your brain. 30 major league teams, 100 places to see. Let's touch them all as we make the road trip of a lifetime.
Welcome back to the Baseball Talk Radio Show. Gary, when we left on break, we were talking a little bit earlier about the standings, and now this seems like it's become the focus. We're going to take a look at where certain teams are, who has the power moves to make it, so to speak, and who we think are moving up in the ranks a little.
Okay.
So let's take a look at the standings here at the end of August. Of course, in the American League East, it's a seesaw battle back and forth. But last week, it seems like the Red Sox ended up with the best tilt of everything, Gary. They're leading 73 wins there over the New York Yankees with the 70 wins.
Yeah, and but the Yankees are only 2.5 behind, Rich. So it's a close, crazy race there. And Baltimore even got to 500, so they could play a part in this before all is said and done. And in the Central, Cleveland seems to have taken control of that. They have a 6.5 game lead, and Minnesota's back up there, Rich. And you know that's something nice to see. They're 6.5 games out, but they were down there for a while. Now they're 4 games above 500, and really made it quite a comeback. The Twinkies.
Yes, they did. And that division isn't settled yet. We have some teams that are still in the hunt for the wild card. Of course, out west, it's all Houston. They're practically ran away with it out there with 79 wins, 13.5 games over the Angels. But I'm starting to get interested in that wild card matchup type.
Yeah, that's going to be quite a thing. The Yankees hold the first wild card, and Minnesota is the second wild card as we talk tonight. And they're holding a 1.5 lead over the LA Angels and Seattle. So still a mishmash. And the 2-game lead in Baltimore's in that, and Kansas City and Tampa Bay still in it. So it's going to, and Texas as well. So it's going to be a long, drawn out affair. I think it's going to go right down to the wire for the second, maybe even the first. They could close in on the Yankees a bit and make it interesting for the American League wild card.
Yeah, there looks like there's 9 teams within 6 games back of the wild card as we speak here, the end of August for 2017 in the American League. So it's wide open. It's going to be an interesting race to the finish here. See which team puts itself in position to actually make the playoffs. That's the goal for a lot of these teams. Your favorite Mets and my Phillies, we're thinking about next year already, Gary.
Yeah, we're already laying the plans for next season and what can they do to improve. And we're not thinking much about the playoffs this year as far as our teams go, Rich.
Over in the National League East, it's the Nationals leading the way, 12 games over the Marlins. But, of course, the Marlins are, much improved. I would have to say that they're pretty successful this year. I didn't think they'd be as good as they've turned out. Of course, Stanton with those home runs have got to add to their luster a little bit. But the Braves hanging tough, although they're 20 and a half games out. Uh, what do you think of that Atlanta team? Do you think they improve next year upon this, or is this just a blip in the system for them?
No, I think they're putting together something nice there. I think, as anything in baseball, Rich, it's going to be the starting pitching. And if their young starting pitching comes through, I think they have enough offense. They probably could improve a little bit on the offense, but they're doing okay. And yeah, I think the starting pitching and the relief pitching is nowadays in baseball, that's the key.
Yes, indeed. Well, over the NL Central, it's the Cubbies. They've regained the NL Central, hopefully to hold on to it for them. And, leaving out of Philadelphia with 2 losses wasn't the worst thing could happen to them, but I'm sure they probably would have liked to went in there and collected that series win. But like I said, it seems like their focus is ironclad on the field. You don't see any of the me. It's all team, concentration. And, that's what I picked up from that team the most. Chris Bryant, when he fields a ball, he's just, you know, zips it over to second like a machine, and the batters, they're not pounding their chest and want the camera to look at them like certain Phillies players. If they hit a double, my God, they want, look at me. I'm from Venezuela or wherever I'm from. I just hit a double. Like
Uh,
come off your fruit bucket or whatever.
well, yeah, that's the new way, and it's nice to see the Cubbies play it old school that way. And Rich, though, that those pesky Milwaukee Brewers are still there.
Yes, they are. They're hanging tough.
2 games out of the Central lead, and they're hanging tough. And the Cardinals are at 500, 4.5 out, and I think pretty much the rest. Pittsburgh, I think, is out of it. Cincinnati's definitely out of it, but that could be a 3-team race going down for that division, and the wild card could be an interesting one. With the looking at the West, there's the Dodgers, and then there's everybody else, I guess, Rich. And Arizona and Colorado have the wild cards now, but they might get pushed a little bit with the likes of Milwaukee and perhaps Miami. Miami's only 4.5 games out of the second wild card spot, and the way they're playing, you just never know.
That's true. And of course, the Dodgers chasing after history here. We still have a solid month of play, plus a couple days in the regular season. They're up to 91 wins. This could be a historic year for the Los Angeles Dodgers. I've heard different stories where they could go over 110 wins very easily. So we'll have to see how that shakes out there out west. And it's going to be interesting for the playoffs. You've got certain teams that are really firing well right now. The Dodgers, Cubbies have turned it around. The Yankees look good every now and again. The Red Sox really look good every now and again. So it's going to be interesting to see the playoffs this year.
It certainly is, Rich, and again, the wild cards are going to be fascinating to watch as well as we go through September and come down to the home stretch. And that's why they did it. That's why they added a second wild card team, because it just opens up that possibility, keeps more cities in the hunt. Look, without that wild card now, you'd have really not that much interest in a Miami, or maybe even Milwaukee would, because you still have a shot at the division there. But you know what I mean? It just would kind of take the luster off of the rest of the season for a number of these teams. Whereas the way it is now, a hot streak could get them into the wild card position.
Absolutely correct. So we're getting psyched for the next month of the season. Of course, next weekend is Labor Day weekend around the U.S. here. So we want to wish our listeners a great holiday weekend. Not sure if Gary and I are going to take that one off as well, but you never know. So if we do, you guys have a great holiday weekend, and we'll be talking to you on the next Baseball Talk Radio show. Gary, you have a great week and enjoy the upcoming week of baseball.
I will, Rich. And one more thing before we go. Congratulations to Japan for winning the Little League World Series in 2017. So everybody have a great week, and we'll see you soon.